I never thought I'd load a U-Haul with my in-laws' antique credenza at gunpoint, metaphorical. Sure. But the cold steel of my resolve felt just as lethal. My husband confessed on our 5th anniversary that the family fortune was built on my dead father's bones. A secret they'd buried under my name to keep their hands clean. And, in that moment, as their generous furniture swap unraveled their empire, I realized revenge isn't sweet. It's the bitter ash of everything you once called home. The rain hammered Dallas like it had a personal grudge, turning the cracked asphalt of our oak lawn driveway into a slick mirror that reflected the neon glow from the corner taqueria. I just pulled up after a 12-hour shift at the ER, my scrub still smelling of antiseptic and regret, when I noticed the moving truck idling out front. Not ours, hell. We couldn't afford one unless it was for hauling flea market finds. I killed the engine of my beat-up Civic, grabbed my tote bag stuffed with patient charts I shouldn't have taken home, and slogged through the downpour toward the front door. That's when I saw her. Margaret Hargrove, my mother-in-law, perched on the porch swing like a queen on her throne, her pearl necklace glinting under the porch light. She was sipping something amber from a tumbler, probably the good scotch she'd gifted us last Christmas, the kind that costs more than our monthly mortgage. Her silver bob was immaculate, not a hair displaced by the storm, and she wore that linen sheath dress like armor. Beside her stood my father-in-law, Harlan, arms crossed over his barrel chest, his BOLO tie askew for once, looking like he'd rather be anywhere but here overseeing whatever fresh hell this was. Cora, darling, Margaret cooed as I approached, her Texas drawl thick as molasses, but sharp underneath. You're soaked.
Comain.
We've got a surprise.
Surprise.
The words slithered out like a warning, but exhaustion dulled my edges. I'd been married to their golden boy, Ethan, for 3 years now, and surprises from the Hargroves usually came wrapped in condescension. Like the time they loaned us their lake house for our honeymoon, only to show up uninvited with a caterer who served kale salads while passive-aggressively critiquing my thrift store wedding dress. But I was too damn tired to fight. What's going on? I asked, wiping rain from my face. Harlan grunted, jerking his thumb toward the truck. Just sprucing things up. Your place could use a woman's touch. Ethan's been fussing about it. Ethan. My husband, the pediatric surgeon with the boyish grin and the habit of leaving his socks on the bathroom floor. He was at a conference in Austin, or so he texted that morning. I pushed past them into the house, my sneakers squelching on the welcome mat Margaret had insisted we display, faux antique, embroidered with "Bless this mess" in cursive that mocked our actual mess. The living room hit me like a sucker punch. Gone was the sagging sectional I'd scored from a garage sale in Deep Ellum, the one with the coffee stains from late-night study sessions during nursing school. In its place squatted a hulking leather sofa, buttery soft and reeking of new money, flanked by end tables carved from what looked like reclaimed barnwood, Harlan's hobby, turning rustic into rustic chic for his real estate flips. The IKEA bookshelf that held my dog-eared paperbacks, Vonnegut, Atwood, the dog-eared medical journals, was replaced by a towering oak armoire, its shelves groaning under leather-bound volumes of Texas history I'd bet my last paycheck neither of them had cracked. What the hell is this? My voice cracked, not from fear, but from the white-hot fury bubbling up like the 4 drip I'd yanked from a combative patient earlier that day. Margaret swept in behind me, her heels clicking like Judgment Day.
Oh.
Honey, don't be dramatic. Your furniture was
quaint.
But this is a home now, not a starter apartment. We thought you'd appreciate the upgrade. Ethan's been so embarrassed when we come over, Those particle board nightmares just scream, struggling millennial. Struggling millennial. At 32. With a nursing degree I'd clawed for while waitressing at Whataburger. And a husband who still deferred to mommy and daddy on everything from our Roth IRA to what wine paired with takeout brisket. It stung deeper than it should. But this was invasion. My space. My sanctuary. The faded quilt from my abuela draped over the armchair. The chipped mug collection from road trips to Marfa, erased like I'd never existed. I didn't ask for this, I said, my hands balling into fists. You can't just replace my life. Harlan chuckled from the doorway. That low rumble, like thunder rolling in from the plains. It's done.
Cora.
Movers already hauled your old stuff to storage. You'll get it back when you're ready to. Mature.
Mature.
The word hung there, laced with the implication I'd always been the outsider. The girl from the wrong side of 35 who snagged their son with a pretty smile and a steady job. Ethan's family had old oil money, the kind that bought discretion and doormats for political campaigns.
Mine?
My dad had been a roughneck who died in a rig explosion when I was 16, leaving Mom to sling beers at a dive bar near Fort Worth. We'd furnished our first apartment with curbside rescues and Craigslist deals, turning scraps into something warm. Something ours. I stormed to the bedroom, heart pounding like the bass from the trap house next door. Sure enough, the wrought iron bed frame I'd painted matte black was gone, swapped for a four-poster monstrosity with canopy drapes that screamed Southern Gothic debutante ball. My clothes hung in the closet amid Margaret's additions, silk blouses and pastels that would choke me faster than a double shift. And on the nightstand, Ethan's photo of us at the state fair, cotton candy in hand, had been nudged aside for a silver-framed portrait of the whole Hargrove clan, smiling like they owned the goddamn horizon. That's when the phone buzzed. Ethan. Hey, babe. Mom told me about the surprise. Isn't it great? They were worried about you stressing over decor. Love you. Talk tomorrow? Love you. 3 little words that suddenly felt like a noose. I didn't text back. Instead, I grabbed my keys and headed for the storage unit, the one Harlan had texted the address for, all casual-like. The rain had eased to a drizzle by the time I arrived. The facility a concrete bunker lit by buzzing fluorescents. Unit 47. I punched in the code, our wedding date. Because of course they'd use something that sentimental, and the roll-up door groaned open. There it was, all piled in like discarded memories, the couch slumped against the wall, its cushions deflated, the bookshelf leaning precariously. Books spilling out like guts, the kitchen table where Ethan and I had hashed out our first fight over his med school loans. Now scarred from a hot pan I'd forgotten about during a grease fire scare. I sank onto the floor amid the dust bunnies, the metallic tang of regret filling my throat. This wasn't just furniture. It was the life I'd built despite the odds, the girl from the trailer park who made it through nursing school on scholarships and spite. By dawn, I'd made my first call. Not to Ethan, but to a divorce attorney I'd Googled at 3 a.m. One specializing in high-conflict family matters, with glowing reviews from jilted trophy wives. I need to know my rights, I told her, voice steady for the first time in hours. They've taken my property. All of it. She laughed. A smoky sound honed in Austin courtrooms. Honey, in Texas, marital property's a battlefield. But if it's separate, like heirlooms or pre-marriage buys, you can claw it back. Start documenting. Photos. Receipts. And if there's more to it, leverage is everything. Leverage. The word lodged in my brain like a splinter. That afternoon, while Margaret texted passive-aggressive emojis, house emoji, heart, shopping bag, I started digging. Not just for furniture tags, but for the underbelly of the Hargrove empire. Harlan's real estate firm, Hargrove Holdings, had been in the news last year for a shady condo development in East Dallas. Whispers of eminent domains strong-arming Latino families out of their homes. Nothing stuck. Of course, money buys silence. But as I pored over public records on my laptop, nursing a lukewarm Whataburger coffee, a name jumped out: Javier Morales. The roughneck who died alongside my dad on that rig. Official report: equipment failure. But the lawsuit settled quietly, with Hargrove's law firm representing the oil company.
Javier Morales.
My abuela's brother. The uncle I'd never met because Mom cut ties after the payout. She'd always said it was too painful, but now it felt like something rotten buried under the politeness. I confronted Ethan that night when he rolled in from Austin, his carry-on thumping against the new credenza like an accusation. "Babe, it's just furniture," he said, loosening his tie, that easy smile flickering like a faulty bulb. "Mom means well. She's always had this thing about appearances, keeps the neighbors from talking." "Talking about what?" I shot back, arms crossed over my scrubs. "About how you married the poor girl, or how your dad's company killed my family and paid them off with crumbs." His face drained of color, the way it did when a patient's vitals tanked. "Cora, that's ancient history. Dad had nothing to do with bullshit." I shoved my phone at him, the screenshot of the settlement glowing like evidence in a crime scene. Hargrove Holdings was the broker. They pressured the widows to sign NDAs. My mom included. He sank onto the leather sofa, their sofa, and rubbed his temples. It wasn't like that. The company was liable. But Dad. He facilitated the deal to keep things quiet. For everyone's sake. Jesus. Cora, you can't drag that up now. For everyone's sake, I echoed, the words tasting like battery acid. Except the dead. Except me. Carrying the weight of your family's sins while you play house with their handouts. That was the first fracture. The one that let the darkness seep in. Over the next weeks, as autumn leaves turned the neighborhood into a postcard of fiery maples, I played the part. Smiling at Sunday suppers where Margaret dissected my career choice over ribeye, nodding while Harlan monologued about Trump-era tax breaks. But at night, alone in the guest room, I'd claimed a headache. A diplomatic retreat, I plotted. The attorney, Lisa, became my confessor. Community properties 50-50, she coached over burner phone calls. But if you can prove separate assets, or coercion, you flip the script. Coercion. That's when the real secret clawed its way out. It started with a misplaced file in Ethan's briefcase. A yellowed envelope labeled CM. Trust. CM, Cora Morales. My maiden name. Inside, bank statements from a trust fund I'd never known about, seeded with the rig settlement money. But rerouted. Not to me, but funneled through Hargrove accounts, invested in their developments. My inheritance, laundered into their legacy. And the kicker? Forged signatures. My mom's, dated after her stroke 2 years back, when she couldn't hold a pen straight. They stole from me, I whispered to Lisa, the envelope trembling in my grip. From us. Her pause was heavy, the kind that precedes a verdict. That's fraud.
Cora.
Embezzlement. You go nuclear, You burn it all down, their reputation, Ethan's career. But you win. Big.
Win.
The word echoed as I stared at the new dining set in our kitchen. Its polished surface mocking the formica table where I'd learned to braid my hair as a kid. I didn't want to win. I wanted them to feel the hollowness I'd carried since Dad's funeral. The way grief gnaws until you're hollowed out. That's when the plan crystallized. Not divorce papers. Not lawsuits.
Return. Every.
Single.
Piece.
It began small. The armoire. I accidentally shattered a pane during a cleaning frenzy, shards scattering like confetti at a funeral. Oh no. I texted Margaret with a photo. All wide-eyed emojis. It just slipped. The movers came the next day. Her face pinched as they loaded it onto their truck. Be careful with that, she snapped at them. It's an heirloom. Heirloom. As if it meant more than my books. Now stacked on the floor like refugees. Next. The sofa. I hosted a girls' night. Nurses from the floor. Cheap rose and bad rom-coms. By midnight, a suspicious red wine spill had seeped into the leather, staining it like blood money. Irreparable, the upholstery guy declared, shaking his head. Margaret arrived at dawn, her lips a thin line. Cora, this is juvenile. Ethan deserves better. Ethan deserves the truth, I murmured. But she didn't hear. Too busy directing the hall away. Harlan's turn came with the bed frame. I claimed insomnia, dosed myself with Benadryl for the hives stress-induced. I'd tell the doc and tossed in my sleep, splintering a post with Ethan's golf club. Clumsy me, I shrugged when he gaped at the wreckage. The divorce papers were drafted by then, tucked in my glove box. But I held off. This was foreplay. The real storm brewed at Thanksgiving. The Hargroves' sprawling ranch house in Highland Park, all white columns and pecan orchards, decked in harvest neutrals that screamed catalog perfection. Margaret had outdone herself. Crystal goblets. A turkey carved tableside by a private chef. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, whispering, "Play nice,
babe."
For me, for you, always for him. But as Harlan droned about his latest flip, a revitalized neighborhood in Oak Cliff that smelled like gentrification to me, I felt the envelope burning a hole in my purse. Leverage. After pie, pecan. Of course. With bourbon whipped cream that stuck in my throat, I excused myself to the study. Harlan's sanctum. Walls lined with mounted deer heads and oil paintings of longhorns. On his desk, a laptop. Password protected, but I'd swiped Ethan's login months ago during one of his post-call naps. A few clicks, and there it was, emails. Chains from 15 years back. Hargrove Holdings to the oil execs. Settle quick. Use the family connection. Morales widows desperate. Attached, my mom's signature. A shaky scrawl I'd recognize anywhere. Desperate. That's what they called a woman burying her husband while pregnant with nothing but a high school diploma and a toddler clinging to her skirt. I forwarded it all to Lisa, heart racing like I'd mainlined espresso. Then, because pettiness is my love language, I borrowed Harlan's BOLO tie, his lucky one, silver with turquoise inlay, and accidentally left it in the turkey drippings. Ruined. He noticed at cleanup, face purple as the wine. Cora, what in God's name? Oops, I said, batting lashes like a sorority girl. Slippery hands. Margaret's eyes narrowed. The first real crack in her facade. This isn't funny. You're acting out. Acting out. Like I was 16 again, sneaking smokes behind the bleachers. But I was done acting. That night, driving home through the sodium-lit streets, Ethan asleep in the passenger seat, I whispered the plan to the dark. Return it all. Not just the furniture, the debt, the lies, the life they grafted onto mine like a bad transplant. The calls started Monday. First, the storage unit. I paid the bill, loaded my old pieces back into the house with a rented dolly and sheer spite. The couch in the living room again, bookshelves flanking the TV. Ethan walked in to find me hammering nails into the wall for Abuela's quilt. Cora.
What?
Renovating, I said sweetly. Back to basics. He laughed. Nervous. Mom's gonna flip. Let her. Then the big guns. I filed the motion for return of separate property, every Hargrove gift, tagged as marital intrusion, backed by photos and witness statements from the movers. Lisa was a shark, circling with discovery requests that dredged up the trust fund fraud.
They'll settle, she promised.
Or fight and lose public.
Public.
The word thrilled me. Dallas Morning News had a soft spot for family feuds, especially when oil money met blue-collar grit. But the twist, the one that kept me up nights, was Ethan. He wasn't in on the rig cover-up. Those emails cleared him. He was the pawn, groomed to marry up, but he'd chosen me anyway, fighting Margaret tooth and nail. I love you, Cora, he'd say, tracing my collarbone in the dark. Screw the money.
Love.
It complicated everything. As the lawyers dueled, the house became a war zone, my thrift finds clashing with their remnants, like ideologies in a bad debate. Margaret showed up unannounced one afternoon, arms laden with Tupperware of pimento cheese, peace offering, but her eyes were daggers. You're destroying him. You know. Our boy. Your boy stole my future, I countered, blocking the door. Now give it back. She didn't budge. That money built empires. Yours included Ethan's practice, your civic down payment. Ungrateful. Ungrateful. The gauntlet thrown. Winter clamped down on Dallas like a vice. The kind that turns humid air to ice slicks and tempers to knives. Christmas loomed. All twinkling lights in Highland Park windows and radio jingles about joy to the world. But our little bungalow on Tulip Lane felt like a bunker. I'd reclaimed the kitchen table by then, its wobbly legs stabilized with a folded Dallas Stars coaster. And meals were a silent standoff, Ethan picking at his enchiladas while I scrolled Zillow for apartments I could afford solo. The furniture war had escalated. Margaret's response to the court filing was a countersuit, claiming the gifts were irrevocable, that I'd vandalized them out of spite. Harlan's deposition loomed, his bluster reduced to emails from his attorney, reckless endangerment of heirlooms. Heirlooms. As if a credenza from Ethan Allen trumped a widow's grief. Lisa laughed when I read it to her over coffee at Ascension, the hipster spot in Bishop Arts where baristas tattooed verses from Corinthians on their forearms. They're scared, she said, stirring oat milk into her latte. Fraud discovery's a subpoena away from unraveling the whole trust. Push for mediation, make M sweat. Mediation. Neutral ground. A conference room in a downtown high-rise with views of the Trinity River snaking like a guilty secret. I arrived early, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, wearing the one blazer I'd bought for job interviews, navy, thrifted from Buffalo Exchange. Ethan was already there, slouched in a chair, tie askew like he'd tied it in the dark. He looked up, eyes red-rimmed.
Cora.
Please. Can we talk first? We stepped into the hall, the carpet muffling our steps like lies. I didn't know about the trust, he started, voice low. Dad handled the books.
Mom.
She pushed the marriage, said it would stabilize things.
But I chose you.
Every day. Chose me. The words twisted. Half truth, half hope. Then why the swap? Why let them erase me? He winced.
Pride.
They think I'm slumming it. I thought it'd make peace.
Peace.
The Hargrove version. Swallow your thorns and smile. I wanted to believe him, to let his hands on my arms pull me back. But the envelope in my purse, the forged signatures, burned like evidence of original sin. Mediation kicked off with handshakes that felt like contracts with the devil. Harlan, in a Stetson that screamed cowboy capitalist, dominated the table, his attorney a weasel-faced guy from Vinson and Elkins. Margaret sat prim, pearls clutched like rosary beads. Lisa laid it out clean, return the furniture, dissolve the trust interlopers, or face fraud charges. MS. Morales Hargrove's inheritance was misappropriated. That's not decor, it's daylight robbery. Harlan leaned forward, veins bulging like rig pipes. That inheritance was a pittance. We turned it into something. Real estate yields. Darling. Without us, it'd be dust.
Dust.
Like Dad's remains, scattered in a memorial park off 35E because we couldn't afford a plot. You profited off death, I said, voice steady. My uncle's, my father's. And pinned it on us. Margaret's facade cracked then, a single tear tracking her powder. We protected you. The scandal would have ruined Ethan. Med school black marks. Whispers at the country club. It was mercy.
Mercy.
The word hung, polarizing the room. Ethan's hand twitched toward mine, but I pulled back. Mercy or manipulation. The line blurred. And in that blur, I saw the twist. They weren't monsters. Just survivors in a system that chews up the small and spits out the bones. But I'd been the bone. We adjourned with no deal. Harlan storming out muttering about ungrateful bitches. Ethan caught me in the elevator. Don't do this.
Cora.
You'll lose everything, me included. Lose him. The threat that kept me tethered. But as the doors closed, I whispered, I already did. Back home. The revenge sharpened. I started with the public angle. A tip to the Dean Anonymous. Through a burner email about Hargrove Holdings' questionable dealings in the rig settlement. The story dropped a week later. Oil legacy or blood money. Dallas firm's ties to fatal explosion probed. No names, but the photo of Harlan at a GOP fundraiser. Arm around a state senator. Said enough. Whispers rippled through the ER. Isn't that your in-laws? Colleagues side-eyed me over charts. The divide clear, some nodding sympathy. Others murmuring about biting the hand that pays your alimony. Ethan came home raging. The paper crumpled in his fist. You leaked this? After everything? Everything. I laughed, bitter as chicory coffee. You're everything. Not mine. He paced the living room, boots scuffing my reclaimed rug. Dad's deals are clean now. This drags us all under, my practice. Patience relying on me. Patience. The shield he always raised. The white knight complex that made me fall. But I saw the flip, his reliance on the family machine. The way he'd signed off on trust transfers without a blink. Complicit. if not culpable. That night, we fought like oil and water, him pleading, me unyielding. Choose, I said finally, standing in the doorway with a duffel packed. Them or us. He chose silence. I chose the spare room. The holidays hit like a freight train. Christmas Eve at the ranch, mandatory per Ethan's family unity plea. Margaret had gone full Norman Rockwell, a 15-foot Fraser for shedding needles on Persian rugs. Stockings embroidered with crests from some Scottish clan they'd invented. Harlan manned the bar, pouring eggnog spiked with rye, his laugh booming as he regaled cousins with tales of wildcatting in the Permian. I played along, sipping spiked cider, but my gift to them was wrapped in red paper, a USB drive, labeled memories. Inside, scanned docs, the forgeries, emails, even an audio clip I'd found on Harlan's laptop, a deep fake, courtesy of a shady contact Lisa knew from her PI days. Harlan's voice admitting the skim. For the family album, I said, handing it over with a smile. Margaret unwrapped it, her face paling as she plugged it into her tablet. The room hushed, carols warbling from hidden speakers. Harlan's voice, we take what we need. Margaret. The Morales chit? Pocket change for the empire. Gasps rippled. Cousins shifted, eyes darting. Ethan's aunt, a tipsy realtor, slurred. Harlan, you old dog, is this for real? He snatched the drive, face apoplectic.
Fabrication.
Slander. But the seed was planted. Whispers turned to calls, lawyers, board members. By New Year's, Hargrove Holdings stock, privately traded, but volatile, dipped. Clients pulling out like rats from a flood. Margaret cornered me in the powder room, the air thick with potpourri and panic. You spiteful girl. This isn't revenge, it's suicide. You'll drag Ethan down with us.
Down.
I met her gaze in the mirror, our reflections like oil portraits side by side. You dragged me first. The furniture was the mask. This is the face underneath. She slapped me then, not hard, but enough to sting, the crack echoing like a gavel. You think you're better? Your father's death was tragedy, not our crime. We gave you a life.
Gave.
The verb of thieves. I touched my cheek, the heat blooming. You gave what you stole. Time to return the principal. Ethan found us like that. Margaret trembling. Me composed. He pulled me away, into the orchard where pecans crunched underfoot like brittle bones. What did you do? He demanded, breath fogging in the chill. Told the truth, I said. Your truth. Theirs. He grabbed my shoulders, eyes wild. The drive, it's fake. Right? Tell me you didn't. The lie stuck in my throat. Does it matter? They did the crime. His hands dropped. You're no better. Twisting words. Ruining lives. For what? A couch. For a couch. For the erasure. For the girl who'd buried her dad in a pauper's field. For justice, I whispered. But even I heard the hollowness. We drove home in silence, the radio droning Carrie Underwood ballads about Jesus taking the wheel. At the bungalow, he packed a bag, surgical scrubs, toiletries, the watch I'd bought him with my first bonus. I need space, he said, to figure out whose side I'm on.
Whose side?
The question that polarized everything. Was I the avenger, striking at generational theft, or the villain, dismantling a flawed family for personal vendetta? Friends picked teams, my ER crew cheering gun. Girl, His golf buddies texting him, "She's toxic."
Bro.
Even Lisa hedged, "Win the war, but don't lose yourself." January brought the thaw, but not the peace. Court dates loomed, discovery yielding more skeletons. Harlan's affairs, funneled through shell companies, Margaret's charity, board siphoning donations for Botox fundraisers. The furniture? Trivial now, but symbolic. Movers hauling out the last pieces, a china hutch I'd overloaded with my cast-iron skillets. Cracking shelves under sheriff escort. Margaret watched from her Bentley, lips pursed.
Petty, she spat.
Priceless, I replied. Ethan moved into a pied-a-terre downtown. Our marriage a hyphenated casualty. But the calls kept coming late nights, his voice thick with bourbon. "I miss you."
This.
"It's killing us."
Us.
The pronoun that tugged. In quiet moments, scrubbing blood from the floor, I'd wonder, was the revenge worth the rubble? The twist nod. What if the forgeries weren't malice, but misguided protection? Mom's signature. Had Margaret held her hand, trembling, promising security for the daughter? Doubt crept, a controversial shadow. But momentum had its own gravity. The climax brewed in February. A deposition showdown at the courthouse. All marble halls and echoing footsteps. Harlan on the stand, sweating under fluorescence. Lisa grilling him like a steak on the 4th. "Mr. Hargrove, explain the trust diversion." Line by line, he blustered, BOLO tie choking him. "Investment. Mutual benefit." Benefit to whom? Lisa pressed. MS. Morales received 0 distributions. Margaret, in the gallery, met my eyes pleading, then stealing. She mouthed, "Stop." But I couldn't. Not when the bailiff wheeled in the evidence cart. My furniture, tarped and tagged. A pathetic parade of reclaimed life amid legal briefs. Harlan cracked then. It was for the boy. Ethan couldn't marry baggage, lawsuits.
Poverty.
We fixed it. Baggage.
Me.
The room spun. Reporters scribbling in the back. Ethan, subpoenaed as witness, took the stand next. His testimony, a flip. I knew fragments. Ignored them. For love.
Love.
The word landed like a grenade. Shrapnel in every heart. Jurors shifted. Sympathy for the spurned wife. Scorn for the enablers. No clear villain. Just a tapestry of grays. As the judge called recess, Ethan cornered me in the hall. "End this.
Please.
For us."
Us.
Again. My hand hovered over his. The precipice. Spring erupted in Dallas, like a confession long held. Dogwoods blooming pink along White Rock Lake trails, mocking the frost in my veins. The deposition fallout hit the news cycle hard. Hargrove heirloom heist. Furniture feud exposes family fraud. Pundits on local AM radio debated it over coffee. She's a gold digger playing victim versus their robber barons in Beyond the Lookout ties. Polarizing, just as I'd subconsciously orchestrated. No heroes. Only survivors clawing for the high ground. The furniture returned in full that week. A surreal parade of U-Haul trucks clogging our street. Movers in coveralls hefted the leather sofa onto the lawn like a beached whale. The armoire splintered but salvageable. The bed frame reassembled by a guy named Tito who whistled Tejano tunes and slipped me his cousin's number for cheap repairs. Neighbors gawked from porches, sipping Big Red and murmuring. Drama at the Hargroves? Never saw that coming. I directed traffic from the driveway. clipboard in hand like a general at Gettysburg. Ethan showed up midway, scrubs rumpled from rounds, his civic dwarfed by the spectacle. "This is insane."
Cora.
"You're turning our lawn into a flea market." "Our lawn," I echoed, checking off the china hutch. "Last I checked, you're the one who let them colonize it." He rubbed his jaw, stubble shadowing the boyish lines I'd once traced with my thumb. "I'm selling the Pide Terra. Moving back. If you'll have me, have him." The offer dangled, sweet as pralines, but laced with arsenic. The deposition had humanized them all, Harlan's bluster cracking into sobs off mic. Admitting he'd bent rules for legacy, Margaret's testimony, voice quavering, claiming she'd mothered me when my own mom faded into dementia. Even Ethan, confessing his blindness as privilege, not malice. The jury, public split, online forums lit with Team Cora, burn it down, and Team Ethan, forgive and forget. Y'all. But forgiveness? It felt like folding a bad hand. Lisa called that night, her office line buzzing as I sorted books onto the reclaimed shelves. They want a global settlement. Full restitution, trust principal plus interest, furniture waived, and a gag order. No charges. Interest. The math, $250,000. Give or take inflation and compound shame. Enough for a down payment on a house in East Dallas. Maybe even Mom's assisted living bumped up a tier. And Ethan? She paused, papers rustling. He's not part of the deal. That's your call. My call. The power thrilled and terrified. A controversial cocktail. I drove to the ranch at dusk, the sky bruising purple over the pecans. Harlan answered the door. Diminished no Stetson. Just a flannel shirt and eyes like a whipped dog's. Cora. Harlan. We stood there, the air humming with cicadas and unspoken indictments. He stepped aside. Margie's in the den. She was curled on the divan, the one they'd tried to foist on us, nursing a gin and tonic. Her bob disheveled. "You won," she said flatly, not looking up. "Happy now?"
Happy.
The word mocked. "Not about winning. About balance." She laughed. A hollow tink. "Balance? We gave you Ethan. A name. Security. You gave me chains." I sat across, the coffee table between us littered with pill bottles, her blood pressure spiking since the leak. The rig. The trust. Even the damn couch, it was control, not kindness. Her eyes met mine, raw for the first time. Control? Darling, it's survival. Your father, God rest him, knew the risks. Javier, too. But the lawsuits, they'd have bankrupted us all. I held your mother's hand.
Cora.
Forged nothing, just guided her pen. She wanted you safe. Guided. The twist uncoiled, slithering through my certainty.
Mom.
Post-stroke. Foggy-eyed. Had she consented in delirium? Or was it coercion wrapped in care? No proof either way. Just gray ambiguity that left me queasy. What now? Harlan rumbled from the doorway, hands shoved in pockets. Now, you sign. And you apologize. Apologize. The word hung, heavier than the settlement. Margaret rose, slow as an old cat, and pulled a folder from the sideboard docks, crisp and waiting. It's done. But know this, Ethan's heart is breaking. You're punishing him for our sins. Punishing. The accusation landed. forcing the divide wider. Was I avenger or abuser? The line blurred in her gaze, mirroring my own doubts. I left with the folder, the drive home a blur of taillights and Tejano on the radio. Ethan waited on the porch. Fairy lights from last Christmas tangled around the railing like nooses. Did they sign? Yeah. I handed him the papers. Our fingers brushing, electric, familiar. He scanned them, then met my eyes. And us.
Us.
The eternal question. In the months since, I'd rebuilt. The bungalow furnished in mishmash victory, my thrift couch mended with duct tape and dignity, shelves bowed under books, and a new potted ficus from the Oak Cliff nursery. Work at the ER grounded me, stitching wounds while mine scabbed. Mom's visits, her eyes lighting on the quilt. Smells like home.
Mia.
But Ethan? We'd danced around it. Awkward dinners at Meso Maya. Walks along the Katy Trail, where he'd vent about suspended privileges at the hospital. Bored whispers of distraction. I'd listen, the love flickering like a candle in wind, but the betrayals ash lingered. Tonight, I said, sinking beside him on the steps. Truth time. The drive fake. But the rest? Real enough. He nodded, unsurprised. I figured. Doesn't change what they did. Or what I did. The confession spilled.
Raw.
Revenge felt right until it didn't.
Now, I don't know whose side I'm on.
He took my hand, calluses from scalpels rough against my palm. Maybe no sides. Just forward. Forward. The debatable end. We signed the divorce the next week, amicable, Texas style, with a nod to co-parenting a life we never had. He kept the Civic, I got the house, trust money seeding a scholarship fund for roughneck kids, Morales Memorial.
Nostrines.
Margaret sent one last gift, the credenza, polished and waiting in the drive. A white flag? Or final jab. I sold it on Facebook Marketplace. The cash buying mom a courtyard view. The twist? 6 months later, a letter from her, handwritten, post-gag order. You were right about the chains. Wrong about the love. Forgive yourself.
Cora.
We never did.
Forgive.
The words sparked debates in my head. In therapy sessions with a counselor who specialized in familial trauma, over beers with my crew. Heroic reckoning or selfish scorched earth?
No tairibao.
Just the tension of what-ifs. Ethan and I, friends, maybe more on rainy nights when Dallas floods and memories pool. The furniture stands sentinel now, scratched, sturdy.
Mine.
Revenge returned it all. But the real haul? The secret unearthed. The scales tipped. If only a degree. In the end, no one's hands are clean. But damn if it doesn't feel like breathing free.